And here goes. Hey, it's Joe Wolzman, CEO and Master Electrician of Jefferson Electric. You know what a lot of electrical business owners want? They want their skill set to create active revenues that they can then reinvest in commercial real estate or residential real estate for passive revenues. And that is what we've done here. Behind me is Jefferson Electric HQ3. You might call it 2 or 3 depending on the day, because we're really ashamed of HQ1 and we don't talk about it very much. And then we moved to a nice decent garage there, and now we're in here. But we relocated over a year ago to the new facility. So I've got a floor coverings specialist that moved in. See, on my left here is Goldie, that's Brandon. Check out this video here, cool things Brandon's doing. We ran some commercial 20 amp circuits for him. Then on the right, we've got Martin. Martin is a floor covering specialist. Let's get inside, check out his job, and get started, because time's ticking. I'm using my VDE tools because we are going to be working on energized circuits today. In addition to all the standard stuff that I'm usually toting in the trunk of the Tesla, I've also got a Tesman tester. In fact, I like it so much, I've got 2. I'm like legit impressed. I'm going to show you this later, but this is probably going to be the multimeter that I put in the hands of my 2 oldest sons. This is 12 bucks on Amazon, and it's gonna do everything they need to have done. So I'll show you that later. Put it in the pouch. And then I've also got a Southwire MC stripper. Dude, I despise, this is me. This is not the gospel of any sort. This is just me. I despise working on MC cable without a proper roto zipper. I just hate it. Feel free to disagree. What practices do you employ for working on MC cable? Hey, to each his own. Do your thing, bro. This is my thing. When I'm tackling a varied job like this, I've got a basic 3-step process. Number 1 is understand present condition. Number 2 is tear it down to the basic forms. Everything I don't need, boom, 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 gone, eliminated, demo. And then number 3, build it back up. Understand, tear it down, build it up. That's the approach. If you've got a different approach, let me know in the comments. But what I'm really interested in is a synthesized nomenclature that you can give to an apprentice. Because if you're doing training, if you're working with somebody else, you've got to, like a guy like me, I want to see the big picture. I don't want you to just give me an individual task. So if you can look at the apprentice, hold up 3 fingers and say, understand, tear it down, build it up, and give them the structure of their day, the structure of the approach, that's really, really helpful to me. So what's your structure? How do you communicate with your apprentice? Actually, before I get started, next Thursday, I'm gonna take a house offline. I'm gonna rip off their 200 amp service, literally pull it off the house, and we're gonna rebuild it on the garage and go underground and refeed it. We'll have utility coordinations. We'll take the customer completely offline. We'll be without power. So we're gonna have 2 portable batteries. The one we're using and the one we hand to the customer for their convenience inside the home. So before game day, I've got a new EcoFlow product. I'm gonna unbox it right now, plug in the solar panel, charge it up. Usually this kind of battery is shipped, lithium batteries are shipped around 50% because that's the best resting level for them. And so I don't want to be in a lurch on game day. I gotta get that prepped. Let's check it out real quick and then hit the job. I want to call out some of the specs and instruction manuals real quick. It's got the quick start guide, which is super illustrative. This is these things are plug and play. Do not be intimidated by a portable battery. This baby weighs 50 pounds, and I'm going to tell you, this is like the portable job site battery for Jefferson Electric. It's only 50 pounds. Some of the bigger units, which I really like for home energy storage, and check out this video here on the Boss battery, but that's 100 pounds. We dove into that one and it's super cool. But 50 pounds, and check this out. Capacity 2,048 watt hours with solar regeneration, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. It's pure sine wave. That means the power you're getting from these lithium portable batteries is spot on. It's not dirty power like generators. It's not going to cause computers and other stuff to wig out and absolutely freak. The surge capacity of this thing is 4,800 watts. That means, like, if we had extension cords and 2 or 3 tools plugged in simultaneously to this beast, and we're running like core drills, angle grinders, like it's gonna operate them. It's gonna manage that situation, which is fantastic. So we don't have to stop, pause. Hey, like you drill that hole, you sit tight, you grind that down, you hang tight. Also want to illuminate that the USB-C power port is at 100 watts per port. Highly impressive. That'll charge up your laptop at the same time you're coring a hole. It has over voltage protection, overload protection, over temperature, short circuit, low temperature, low voltage, over current protection. That's something that your generator can't boast. Generators are a hog, right? You just love filling them with gas and letting them run all day, but they stink up your cab. They spill on the floor of your cab, so it stays stinky for months. It's hard to clean up. They create a ton of noise, so it's hard to communicate on the job site. And all in, I'm a fan of lithium portable power. I do want to illuminate two more things. One, EcoFlow has an app, so you can get in-depth insights on your mobile device into everything that's going on with your unit. Oh, beautiful travel case. Oh, 220 watt solar panel. That is gorgeous. Okay. And I broke it. Nah, they're more durable than that. It'll be all right, bro. Here are the PV cables. Exactly what I expected. And it's nice in that these are MC4s, positive and negative. Those are standard solar industry connectors. And so if you had to figure out something else, rig up some additional power, you'd easily be able to, you or your local solar contractor. Let's just set this thing in the sun and see what it does. So this solar panel is 220 watts, which is impressive for its size. This unit will accept up to 400 watts of solar input. It's a folding solar panel. Look at that. Oh, gorgeous. We've got 125 watts. Sunshine cranking into our battery. Look at this, the carrying case. It's got these little carabiners, hooks on, and it literally, that's stiff. And it is the support for the solar panels to hold them at a 45-degree angle. That's pretty cool. These are bifacial solar panels, which means that you've got some kind of like Gorilla Glass on the backside too, not some weak sauce paper. And so that's durable. It's got a little flexibility to it. All wraps up tidily in the EcoFlow pouch. I'm charging 185 watts on my DeWalt 20-volt quick charge, 125 solar replenishment. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Roll out a couple more mods, 400 watts total, stack a couple more batteries, and just go off grid. It's time to tackle the project. Let's figure out what we got going on here and start ripping things down. First thing I notice is a expired conduit up here. Pull that out. We're not doing anything. That does not help us achieve our goals. Let me put it that way. I'm interested in getting into here. This conduit gets deleted. Oh, in fact, look at that. It was barely supported. Barely supported. This box is live. That's warehouse lights. All the warehouse lights right there. Keep those cranking so Martine can be productive, but let's just take a peek inside. The box is stuffed and loose. This switch is going to be replaced with a 20 amp commercial switch, and that'll be the break room light down here. Not only is the box loose, but it's completely unanchored. Okay, definitely going to de-energize to accomplish that. Pull the conduit out, probably, we'll be talking to the electrical code coach later on this video, and I've got my first question for him. It's actually a debate that we've been having in the office here for a little while. We've got people on both sides of the line. It's gonna be a good one. Stick around for that. It's gonna be a good one. Okay, so we know what's going on there. This is not supported. It'd be awesome to see what's going on up there, but we are right upstairs above the electrical panel. Tim, lower right breaker, second floor lights. Can you shut that off? Boom. See, the Testament, one of the things I love is that it's got base functionality, voltage, DC voltage, AC. It's got resistance. audio, but it also has non-contact voltage detection, which is sweet. And a flashlight. This thing's slick. So always be mindful. You could have more than one circuit in a box. That's why I like to, just because the lights went off doesn't mean that this box is de-energized. But that, my friends, is that. Turn off my flashlight. This thing will auto time off, or you can use the power button. And it's so compact. Look at the size in relationship to my hand. Thing is slick. That's slick. That's just a good little entry-level meter. Good job, Testman. All right, let's cut some zip ties off, make sure we know where all these cables are going. I'm gonna pull them down. Beep. We've cleared out the wiring up above. Now we're down below, but I wanted to pause real quick and say, Tom Corey, our camera guy behind the camera, you guys don't get to see him, but he is one of the most encouraging, supportive people that you will ever have the privilege of working with. I show up late, I'm running tired, hassled, upset, job's not going well. Tom's standing by with care and support. He's understanding, he helps drive things forward. Guys, high five him in the comments below if you appreciate what we're doing here. Tom Corey, man behind the camera, boom! So now that we're down below, I think I've isolated this right here. This is the home run back to the electrical panel. I'm not gonna rip out that whole circuit. I'm just gonna relabel it. I'm gonna box it and label it and leave it right up here for future use. That's not gospel right there. That's just slight preference. I could go ahead and pull the whole thing out, but I think I'm just gonna strip it back, terminate it, box it, leave it. And then I'm gonna utilize the existing circuit over there to add the new break room light right here. And I've got some blocking. We'll make sure that's supported and it's screwed in. There it is. Yeah, it's screwed in 2 screws on each side, so it's super solid. And we'll find the center of the room, which it is center. So I think this is working out actually in our favor. It's going really fast. We'll have to find more work to do today. What's going on here is we've got a 400 amp meter cabinet outside. It's a CT cabinet. Feeds into this 200 amp main breaker cabinet. Then it also, from the 400, feeds to this 200. And this is the disconnect for the adjacent space, Brandon space. And again, if you haven't seen that, click the video here. He's got a cool thing going on there. Let's go ahead and use our Southwire Roto Zip and terminate this cable. So guys, this is what this looks like. First, let me show you what. You adjust the knob here to fit the size cable you're using. So you don't just use 12.2 with this, but it's also compatible with 12.3, 10.2, 10.3. At some point you're gonna size out, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. I bet you could use 8 gauge MC cable. So you just take that handle, you spin it around, you can tell when the resistance disappears. I'm through the jacket, so I release, because that's my cutting wheel right there. I'm engaging, when I squeeze that down, I'm engaging both the pin to apply pressure to the cable and hold it in place, then also the cutting wheel with that little action right there. And I'm spinning the cutting wheel with this handle. So that's all that does. Then you just pull and twist, boom. Remove that inside paper, usually it'll break free. Insert your anti-short bushing. A lot of guys will love the more expensive connectors that don't require a separate anti-short bushing, and that bushing's not code, it's just best practice. Number 2 square drive, open up that connector. So this is a low cost, higher labor connector, but it's pretty versatile. It's got a broad range of acceptable cable, and I'm only using a couple today, so that totally works. Slip it in there. You want to see that red anti-short bushing, see that red flag? That's the bushing. It shows me it's fully engaged. Tighten down that connector. Never death grip your connectors. You'll actually could short the cable internally. Spin that lock nut off. Punch it into the side of this box. Guys, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I've got one 48-minute video out there, and it's a great video. There's so many things I like about it. But it's on electric vehicle charging, and I forgot, like the ground screw is sitting right there, and I just totally, while I'm chatting on camera, totally forgot to terminate my ground wire to the ground screw to ground a metal box. That video has over 2 million views. You want to know what the #1 discourse in the comments section is? Hey, he forgot and you can't respond to everybody. There's no way. Hey, he forgot the ground screw. He forgot to ground to the ground screw. Hey, he forgot to ground the box. Hey, code requires. Hey, he forgot. I think I responded to the first like 15, like, you're right, humble pie. Not gonna dodge that one. You're 100% right. You're right. Now the owner of that channel went back and corrected it. And if you wanna see that video, it's a pretty good video. Start to finish, electric vehicle charging, check right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ground my box. First thing, I almost always deal with my grounds first, right? So use my south wire, 7-in-1s. These things will needle nose, pliers, strippers, cutters, thread cutters. I'm just gonna strip that. I'll only do a mid strip. Heck, I know some of you really don't like the mid strip. Mid strip, end strip. I'm set up for the next wire that enters this box. I'll wire nut those so they don't, if they become energized, don't short against the side of the box. All right, connector is tight, tool tight, in fact. This is a 4-square box, also called a 1900. Almost done, but not quite. Grab 2 more little drywall screws and some Jiffy clips. Man, even just a basic function like that, it's nice being wearing gloves. You know why? You might slip off the screw. Have you ever drilled your hand when you're bearing down on a driver with a blunt force bit like that? That is excruciating. Then also, if that Jiffy clip catches and spins, it becomes a knife, and you're gonna be thankful that you've got those Kevlar cut resistant gloves. So I'm a big fan of gloves and eye protection. Like every job, all the time. I'm just missing one glove today. Like threw away my old ratty pair that you guys have been making fun of that's missing the fingertips. And this pair is not a pair. So that is on my list when I go back to the shop. Okay, it's time to label both box and breaker as spare and wear. Use my fine tip Sharpie for that. And that is circuit number, how many circuits I have? Is this a 42? 42, yeah, or 40 in this case. I'll pull out a new one for that. Poor handwriting, poor me.
Harry, I am so glad. I mean, you are the electrical code coach. You're the kind of resource I need because I've been an electrician now for 17 years. And I would say probably every 3 or 4 jobs I come up against a couple different things and I'm like, that could be nuanced. I wonder if this is best practice that I'm confusing with code, or I wonder if this is a code minimum standard. I wonder if there's merit in increasing above code minimum standard here. What's the job cost? What's the customer perceived value? Like, there's so many questions and all valid questions to be asking. But the fundamental question that I'm asking you here today on this job is, first, can I run MC cable in a warehouse like this below 8 feet, where in our jurisdiction, that's going to be considered subject to physical damage? Now, I don't think, correct me if you see differently, I don't think that if I run it back here on the break room wall, that it would be considered subject to severe physical damage. But then in the warehouse, will there be operating a forklift? Would that be considered subject to severe physical damage? And where's the tipping point with your typical 12-2-2 Southwire MC cable off the shelf from Home Depot? What do you think? What's best practice? What's code minimum?
Okay, so this is a great question, and this is unfortunately one that's absolutely going to be up to your AHJ, your inspector. But I'll give you my thoughts on it. So when you get over to 330 and you get into 330.12, now anytime we're dealing with a conductor, cable, or conduit, we're going to head over to that specific article, and we're going to head to the .10 and .12 sections first. So when we get to 330.10, it's going to be uses permitted for MC. That's going to let us know everywhere that we can use MC. And then MC actually has only a very short list in 330.12, which is going to be where we cannot use it. And when we get to part 1, we're going to find out that it says subject to physical damage. It's not allowed to be. Use is not permitted where subject to physical damage. So in this case, it doesn't say severe physical damage, at least in the code book that I was reading it earlier, which is the 2020 version. You said that you were on the 08 in some of our previous conversations. But with that being said, physical damage and severe physical damage, it's going to come down to really practical, like you said. Out here in the warehouse, definitely going to be subject to severe physical damage, in my opinion. MC, however, is not allowed to be subject to physical damage at all. And that's why the code has left this really vague, and I'm glad that they have, because it's really going to be up to your local electrical inspector. Do I think in the break room it's subject to physical damage? Probably not, depending on where it's at. Do I think out in the warehouse it's subject to physical damage? I do, absolutely. So it's all going to come down to your local inspector, and you may be in one county, he says, yes, you can do it exposed in the break room. You may be in another county and he says, no, that you cannot. So I wish I had more of a finite answer on this one, but it really is going to be subject to interpretation. I would say in the break room, you're fine, but I would, like I tell everybody, always check with your local electrical inspector.
Boom. That is a magical answer. The AHJ is the final authority. Now, let me ask you a couple of fundamental questions, and I'm really probing here. This is not a code question per se, but it's a code approach mentality. I have to fully admit, when I'm approaching the code, I'm looking for permission to get work done. I'm not really approaching it with restrictions. So sometimes what I think is the code actually contradicts itself, because it's a complex document that's been produced by thousands of people over the course of years, iterations, situations, lawsuits, and litigation of all types, right? Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes it's a little bit at odds. Sometimes there's some holes, gaps, and some nuances. Would you agree, one, that the code does have some gaps, contradictions, and some voids of information at times?
Absolutely, it does. It's written for people, and anytime you have people involved, you're going to have errors, you're going to have mistakes, you're going to have oversights. A really good example is here in the 2023 code. We're really diving into it now, and if you go to Article 100, that's where they've moved all the definitions. Well, when you go look at the definition of a permanently installed pool, they've removed the height gap. I believe it was greater than 42 inches would have been considered a permanently installed pool. Well, if you read the definition now, they have completely omitted all above ground pools. So all above ground pools, no matter if it's 90 feet tall and surrounded by block and brick, if it's above ground, it's not going to be considered a permanently installed pool, meaning you don't have to bond it. You don't have to do all these things. So it was a big goof up by the code making panel, and it's something that they're definitely going to have to fix in 2026. And I really look for them to do, in between amendment to fix that now.
Wow. Okay, so you said in between amendments, flesh that out a little bit. How many amendments and what does that look like? Does a code undergo any particular code cycle on average?
So they do, when there's really specific things, that really big boo-boos in the code making process, they do an interim amendment, meaning that it's code right now. And a really good example is in 2020 when they started requiring GFCI protection for all outdoor outlets, which included HVAC equipment. Well, unfortunately, down in Texas, there were some people who died because of this. It tripped, GFCI tripped, somebody died. And they said, oh my goodness. And the reason is some of the units, some of the older units and some of the newer units, they leave that 4 to 6 milliamp threshold. and they trip on those AC units. Well, they had to come in immediately and make an I think it's a TSA or TIS. I'd have to think about that, but it's an interim amendment. It's in between the code cycles, and it becomes code immediately. And they allowed you to not put GFCI protection on it until a later date. And then even in the 2023, they extended it again out to 2026 to give the market time to correct and to be able to make it so these HVAC units do not trip on this GFCI protection. And unfortunately, like you said before, with many people and lots of codes and litigation, there's usually always a body count when it comes to a code change, especially when it's one that's done in between cycles, because something extreme has happened and they've had to step in and, they've had to step in and course correct.
Wow. So HVAC equipment tripped out, temperature rise inside the house, and probably some elderly or maybe some infants were tremendously malaffected. Wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of the extreme version, but that's the kind of stuff that happens. I do look for them to make an amendment on that pool bonding, because yes, it would not be on the definition of permanently installed pools. No, it would not be an immediate death, but you're talking about thousands and thousands of pools that are going to be installed and not have to follow all of the requirements laid out there in 680.26, 680.23, and so on. So I look for them to change that pretty quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a legitimate contractor would see that and intentionally take advantage of it. However, I could see that somebody could accidentally fall into that who's not generally informed and just looks at that one specific data point. And I wonder how many pools right now are not properly bonded as a result of that.
Maybe not as a result of that yet, because that's a new change and they may not even catch it. These pool installers, they just kind of go do the same thing, rinse and repeat. So they may never catch that code, but it's out there. And if there's a contractor who can save a nickel and try to, that's why you'll see small changes in the wording of some of these codes, because somebody does push it to that extreme edge, right? But hopefully nobody even notices, and they just keep installing them like it is a permanently installed pool. I know that I'm going to keep installing them like they're permanently installed pools. So,
yeah. Okay, so I really appreciate that. Another fundamental question, I started fleshing it out, is I'm looking for permission rather than restriction. How do you approach the code? Do you have a mindset?
Absolutely, I do. I want to win. I want to win in life, and I want to win in business. And the code is set up as the rules, right? Like if we're playing football or basketball, it's the rules that I have to play by. Listen, Joel, we want the buy-in to the electrical table to be very high. We want it to be hard to get your license. We want it to be hard, not hard, but we want the buy-in to be high. We want it to be costly, because if not, anybody could be at the table, right? And then the reward is going to be less. The pot's going to be smaller. With that being said, that's how I look at the code. I want it as close as I can get it to the code, because if I don't and something comes back on me later, it could deter me from winning tomorrow. I'm doing the things today that cause me to win today and don't stop me from winning tomorrow. So I just want to know whatever it takes to win. And it's not winning at all costs. There's two different types of winning. There's winning, because you're better than somebody, and there's winning because you're bitter. And you just got to be one of those people who win because you're better. And I'll just keep becoming better and better, so I can continue to win.
Damn, that's a pure goal, Barry. I love it. Man, you've got to be future-minded. Really well said. Wow. Okay, so another code question here. Keeping it rolling. MC cable. Am I required by code to utilize anti-short bushings in my MC cable?
Well, it's not specifically Article 330. So in 330 is where they would specifically require it. And there's no other piece in the code that specifically requires red eyes or anti-short bushings to be used. So with that being said, you have to be careful here before I expound on that more. If you're dealing with AC cable and you head over to, I believe it's 320.40. You'll have to double check that. But when you get over to 320.40, it specifically requires anti-short bushings, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because AC and MC cable, they both come in steel, they both come in aluminum, they're almost identical. I don't know why it would be required on one and not on the other. And like we joke about at these meetings that I go to, we look forward to your public input in 2026, right? Anytime we all state something really obvious, they'll say something like, usually just to get you off the mic, they'll say, hey, we look forward to your public input in 2026, because we all think that if it should be required for MC or AC, it should be required for MC. With that being said, you could get caught on 110.3b, which is the catch-all code, right? Everything must be installed according to its listing and labeling instructions. So if that wire manufacturer has dictated that you must use it, and in my opinion, if they ship it with it, that's a pretty good, I mean, that's kind of nudging in the right direction, right? That, hey, I've shipped you these anti-short bushings, maybe I should. Now, legally, they would have to have it in their listing and labeling instructions for it to be code. But with that being said, I prefer to use them, but I don't always use them. And let me explain what I mean. If I'm out on a job and I'm doing a service call and I'm there, I'm not leaving to go buy any short bushings. I'm going to take the jacket, crack it open. I'm going to take we use paper jute and Romex. I guess it would be plastic jute that they use inside of MC. And I take it and I wrap that around and I stuff it down in there and then I stick my connectors on. And the reason I have no problem doing that is because those connectors for the MC are listed to not use those anti-short bushings. I'm not saying that all of them are, but they're designed to protect the wire once you lock those in, depending on what style you're using. Do I prefer to use the anti-short bushings? I do. Is it code? No. And is it a deal breaker for me? The answer is no.
Man, I like the mindset. That's really helpful. I mean, just the code is so complex, and talking it through and gaining, when you read the code, you gain information. But when you have this conversation, you gain understanding. And that is absolutely phenomenal. Okay, another question for you. We've got a concrete floor. I've got receptacles throughout. I've got no water source here in the warehouse space. However, I have occupied this facility. I can tell you that occasionally during a hard spring rain, water will come underneath the back overhead door because the ground's uneven and there's a a sealing weather strip. However, it doesn't seal uniformly because of the unevenness of the floor. So you get water in the warehouse area, non-GFCI receptacles indoors here. Is that code what's best practice?
So you're going to head over to 210.8B other than dwelling units. And as long as you're not caught in one of those areas, you don't have to GFCI protect it. I will say that you're on the 08, so it's a lot less stringent in the 08 than it is in the 8, in the 11, then onto the 14 and 17, and now into the 20. The biggest takeaway from this is that if it's not in one of those areas specifically listed in 210.8B, depending on what code cycle you're on, you're not going to be required to GFCI protect the general receptacles. I will say this, you need to watch out for 210.8D, which is specific appliances. And, if you're wiring something very specific, make sure that it's not caught there. If you spend just a few minutes reading there in 210.8, go ahead and read .8A. It's going to cover your dwelling units. Go ahead and read .B. It's a very short read. You can grab a whole lot just right in that small section. As far as best practices go, I use a lot of common sense. For one, if it's in the code, I just go ahead and do it and I don't worry about it. But I use a lot of common sense. If I am going to have water flooding into this door, if I am going to have people working with metal utensils around metal poles, they are going to be grounded on that concrete floor. Or am I going to go ahead and put it in? The odds are probably yes. And this is why I do it. For one, I want the safest install. I want the safest install that's physically possible. For two, people have no problem paying for parts as much as they have paying for labor. But that's a song for another day. Long story short, if you tell somebody about a part or if you just group it in your parts, they're probably not going to say something as much as they would if they thought you charged them more labor. They'll pay $80 for a piece of tile, but they want to pay you $2 to install it, right? It's just kind of the mind frame. Or they want to pay you $26,000 to wire a house and then pay $40,000 for the front door. So it's just, people don't mind necessarily paying for material as long as they see the benefit. But as far as GFCI protection, I like to put it anywhere in those type situations, just because I know I'm that much safer. And it's same thing with AFCI technology. Now, I would be very careful putting it in a warehouse if they're going to be using saws and other things that you'd normally see in a warehouse. So,
really appreciate that. That's so good. And that's a good point. An extra $20 a circuit to put a GFCI and protect everything downstream. You're not typically going to get much customer resistance. Now, no. Perry, have you worked, a bit about your history, have you worked in a customer facing role as an electrical contractor?
Oh, absolutely. So I've been licensed for 10 years, have had, the 8 guys, 5 vans, been the biggest, the highest rated contractor in our area. So I've lived tools on. I just recently have taken tools off. So my whole mindset is, and before that, I was a mason contractor. I can lay anything brick, block, or stone. And then when I finally got off drugs and alcohol, I got into electrical. It's like it was a time warp. All that lost time that I got back. And then now I've done nothing but electrical contractor, since till just now.
Wow. So how long in the trades as a whole, and how long as an EC?
So 10 years as an electrical contractor, 10 to 12 years as an electrical contractor, and then as the trades as a whole since I was really about 5 years old. So I've been on a job site since I was a kid. So I've been around the trades. I know how to do, some drywall, know how to do carpentry, I know how to do, just kind of well-rounded.
That's really useful skill, because as an electrical contractor, you do, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, especially if you're running service and you encounter all kinds of problems. So you're not in a new construction, more controlled, predictable environment. And in fact, I've got my 8-year-old on the job site here today. So he's learning as well.
That's great.
Now, mostly he's got his ball and he's bouncing it off the wall over there, playing catch with himself.
Absolutely.
We've all done that.
Yep.
Perry, any last words for us?
Oh, really, if I could just take a minute to talk to, to your viewers. So I just want to let you guys know that you've got something special here with Joel, and I want you guys to get behind him, support him, encourage him, because as he continues to grow and win and gain more impact, I believe that you will as well.
I really appreciate that. And a call to the viewers, guys, you have got a wealth of knowledge right here. Perry puts himself out there. His YouTube channel is right here in the description, top line. Check him out, because when you've got access to a guy like Perry, you don't have to bust all your knuckles learning it yourself. You can go direct to the man, the myth, the legend, grab that information. And that information, Perry makes a good point of this. If you've watched his videos, you can monetize that information, so that your customer wins, you win, it's right, it's safe, and you're winning today and in the future. So Perry, I really appreciate your time today. Guys, check him out, sub to his channel. And Perry, look forward to talking to you next time.
Hey, take care, brother. Let's get to it.
Thanks. You too. See ya.
Thank you. Got what I need here. I think I'm all set. What I'm gonna do is, I don't have any unshunted tombstones to convert this fixture like we did the others. This old 2-lamp T12 8-footer, but I am going to energize the last fixture I've got taken apart, and that's going to illuminate the rest of this storage area. So I'm ready to de-energize this circuit, which is live. You can see the red there. And Tim, you ready? Shut it off?
Yeah, dead.
Boom. All right, just check everything here. Make sure there's not a pass-through circuit. Check both your black and your white as a best practice, because if it's 240 volt, in this case it'd be 208, you could have two hots, and the LEDs are compatible with 100 through 277 volts, so they would function just fine, I think. Now that I've got this rewired off the main, we are ready to energize this last little bit of fixture here that we de-energized off the old switch. Okay, hit it, Tim. Okay, all right, anticlimactic. Everybody, back to your positions, nothing to see here. Yeah. That's it, 20 amp commercial switch, new faceplate. That faceplate it's just for aesthetics. That's the only reason I'm swapping it out. Someone pays an extra 55 cents to feel like they got a little bit extra, and Martin keeps saying, I just want it to be nice. I just want it to be, I like it clean. So, Martin, this is for you, bro. So Tim's asking a valid question here, or making a valid observation. See, I've got more than 6 inches of conductor inside the box, more than 3 extending from the box. And I've got a nice clamp style device. So I'm not just side wrapping that wire, I'm actually clamping it under the terminal of this 20 amp commercial switch. So I'm going to flatten it out real nice. I'm going to eliminate a joint, leave the jumper behind. Some guys just love the pigtails, the jumpers, love them, love them, love them. You know what? I like to eliminate joints. I don't dislike pigtails and jumpers, but I like to eliminate joints. And so I'm gonna duck in here with my number 1 square, snug that down, and that's rock solid. So there is no jumper on this guy. The blue, I don't know which is hot and which is switch leg, but that is actually irrelevant here. I just need one on one side, one on the other. And then I think I'm gonna interrupt. Let me just back it up and see. I think I'm gonna interrupt this up top. And that's where I'm going to then jump my MC cable from my switch leg to my fixture. Okay, take it back, it's not relevant. I gotta detect which one it is and put a jumper in. So let's just scope that out real quick. Okay, warehouse lights are on. Is it that one? Oh, look at me. It's that one. Psh, good thing that plate isn't grounded. Okay, blue's the hot. Blue's the hot. Back off. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. Begin with the end in mind. We're going to remove this switch leg here. We're gonna cap it. That was to the warehouse fans, which are no longer in service. And I just happen to have enough history with the space to know that. This is my hot. If I've done my job right, I'm gonna trim that back a little bit. And we're not required to have pigtails and jumpers here. We've got this nice clamping mechanism. There it is. So that's a nice tight commercial connection. Not typical if you're residential devices. I'm going to pull screws out, break the ears off because those will not fit underneath this raised cover. So those are gone. Separate mounting style. The new screws will go actually through those holes right there, through the faceplate and through those holes. So these screws are out. These screws are what we'll utilize, but the faceplate comes with those, this raised cover. So now it's time to get an MC cable out of here, assuming that's a neutral. And what we're gonna use is our Tesman tester to verify that. I'm not doing very well at my electrician hoops today. I keep missing the point blank shots into my trash box. That is actually one of the fun parts of being an electrician. You're up on a ladder, you're like 20 feet from your box, so you gotta throw away a little part and you just take shots. See, I played hoops in high school, and so it's a fun little personal competition. I should have taken sewing in high school. Maybe I would have dropped fewer parts. That would have been a plus. Anti-short bushing. Optional device, comes recommended, but not necessitated. All right, terminating a fixture. Couple of steps here. Strip your ground, strip your black and white, and if you're doing some jobs with scale, you can use some components that will provide shortcut. But that's not what we're doing here, so I'm just using the manual method. And we've got a total of 2 conductors per socket. I'm going to cut off the excess because I don't want to have to fight that getting it into the fixture. And then these strippers are oversized for this conductor, but if you turn them at a slight angle and pull extra hard, you'll get it stripped. There it is. I had to chew at that one a little bit because the conductors are small. 18 gauge, give or take. Okay. So in this case, I actually need a hot and neutral in each tombstone, but I've got 2 yellows to one tombstone and 2 blues to the other. So it's not a color to color. Okay, 1 blue and 1 yellow. And inside the fixture, I'm not too worried about color coding. It's when I'm pulling building wire that I'm gonna be more concerned. So my 1 blue, 1 yellow is gonna be a neutral. So just to clarify, what I've got here is 1 blue, 1 yellow, match up all the ends. Each tombstone has a neutral. Crank it down, then give it the tug test, make sure nothing pulls out. And if these were shunted tombstones, meaning that you had the 2 terminals were common inside the tombstone, then as soon as you flip the breaker and the switch on, it would blow just like that. So they've got clips on one end. You just tuck up in there. You want to make sure none of the wires pinched, which ours is really controlled. In this case, because I cut it short, sometimes there's a lot to fight and stuff, particularly if the old ballast is in there. And then check and see which side is your AC in. That's a dummy side. It's unmarked. And then this side actually says AC line neutral. So that's the end that I want to put down here to this tombstone. And that, my friends, is that. Okay, a couple jiffy clips. We'll route that MC cable over there. I'm going to use this set of existing holes. Yep, just long enough. Okay, so there was a comment from one of y'all that you really thought it was super unprofessional of me to be using NM staples to secure MC cable. What do you guys think? Drop your comments below. All right, 2 zip ties, Tim, and we'll just zip tie that up right there. Strip it right there. Oh, here comes the roto, and it's lightweight too, you know, it's what, 10 ounces or something? Less than that, probably. Somebody's gonna look it up. It was 8.8. It's very lightweight. I need to do a better job at beginning with the end in mind. Sometimes I'm a little exploratory, like, well, let's try this, let's do that, let's see what happens here. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna face my connector about 90 degrees, the opposite direction of tight. And once I feel like I'm just there and it's as tight as I can get it by hand, then I'm going to spring into action with a small tool and finish it off to where it's immovable now by finger force. All right, let's get this box. This EMT is probably an acceptable ground path and it's probably well terminated at all points, but I'm going to go ahead and take the MC there, more than 3 inches. Extending from the box, more than 6 overall. Let's strip that, terminate it to the ground screw. I think I still have had to work for that, but it's in there. All right, let's test that and make sure that neutral is valid. Bring our, what is our switch leg here, this black, to our switch. Okay, so this is a auto meter, which is nice in that it'll auto range AC DC voltage, performs both. You could use it on your small circuitry and appliances. You could use it on the job site. You know, let's just even do this. Watch this, what you can do if you really want to be hands off while the circuit is de-energized. Slip that probe in there to give it just enough to hold everything in place. Now your hand's free on that. And bring it in here on the other side, or maybe you're short a pair of hands, just like this neutral is short. It won't come any further out of the box. Take that, use a larger, throw the old wire nut in the trash. Use a larger wire nut like this red and slip it in there. And here goes. Okay, 125.1 volt. That's the nice thing about the Tesman, among other things. 1, it's so compact. 2, it's incredibly cost effective. 3, it's a light non-contact voltage detector with illuminated display, voltage AC and DC resistance. It's got audio, so you get some cues and tips if your hands are full and you're in a tight spot. It is a fantastic little meter. I'm gonna recommend it to you. Check the description. There is an Amazon link to this Tesman tester. Click it, add it to the cart, check out. Beautiful little birthday gift, Father's Day, whatever the case is. They're gonna think you spent way more than $11.99 on this meter, I guarantee it. Now let's shut the power off and wrap this up. Okay, stuffing a little bit, it's getting full. Watching, okay, don't push too hard, there it is. Make sure this is not so long, it's gonna short anything out, and I've got a clear line of sight here. 1, 2, 3. Ha, we're batting 1,000 on very simple tasks. Break room is now illuminated. Let's gather up our tools and move on to the next job. We're out of here to the final soccer game of the season. Playoff game against our arch rivals. We've tied them 1-1 twice, but for the playoffs, we will go into shootouts if required. And that, my friend Martin, is set up for success. We'll be back to button up the final details. And as for you, subscribe to Electric Pro Academy for real skills to make real money. I'm out.